Testing, testing. All right, we are on. Let me make sure my position is good. All right, today is Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. And everything is connected. So I try to decide how I wanted to begin this recording, and I think I'm just going to jump in. There are literally millions of points of entry, and it all makes sense. It's a cycle because everything is connected. It's cyclical. It's never ending. It's never begun, and it never ends. And so anywhere that we jump in, it all makes sense. It's all connected. And I think, so we start with the 3D. So the 3D is everything on this earth that we can see, our bodies, everything that makes sense logically, all the things that's our 3D. I'm gonna go get water. Hold on. I know. Once I figure out how to edit, I'll edit all this out. But so the 3D is just everything that when you're asleep, when you're unconscious, so to speak, when you're unintentional, when you don't recognize the amount of power that you have in your life to varying degrees, the most dense is no consciousness whatsoever. So that's a rock, let's say, for this example. All the way up to the more someone or a species or a consciousness becomes aware of itself and more awake. The more awareness we have, the more awake we are. So then we're kind of coming up through these levels of density, because density is where there's no room for thought or flow. So we come up from density and we're in the third dimension, and then we come up and high, and the people that we perceive around us to be enlightened or the most holy or the most idealized type of person, morally speaking, spiritually speaking, all of the things, for reasons across the board, they, like all of us, have varying levels of density. So those people that are the upper echelon that we tend to see are people that are more translucent, they lose more and more of that density. They're more enlightened, right? And so as we go through different levels of waking up, we start to see that everything truly is connected. And we keep going all the way up until we understand that our thoughts are what has created everything. Everything I look around and see in the third dimension has meaning because I've given it meaning with my thought. So I look at the salt lamp and I understand what that is because it's in my mind. So I've thought through all this stuff. When I recognize something, when it's in my consciousness, I can name it. And once I name it, that's what it is, because that's what I conceptualize it to be. The concept of the wind chime is the wind chime. If it was never conceptualized, if I never could acknowledge what it was, it doesn't exist. So as I move up and I keep pulling the lens back and I think about, wow, listen to how I'm describing that. And I think about what I'm thinking about, and that's metacognition. And then I keep going back and I'm like, but who is the person recognizing me doing that? Who's behind that? Who's the one that's animating me to have the voice come out of my 3D mouth? Where is the vision being held? If the vision, before it can conceptualize into a thought, into actual 3D, recognizably, touchable, tangible, once I can densify it down so much, who's the one doing that? And I recognize that I am. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and I am God. Everything I think is out there, has been created, because if I can think of it, it's out there. So when I look at someone that I love, right? I look at this person and they do something and I feel a certain way. I have conceptualized that person, and what they're doing is a concept that I've created, so it comes back at me, if I see that, if I sense that, I understand that I created that. So it is not foreign to me. Everything that I create is my creation. And I would never hurt myself, because to hurt is to be the antithesis of pain. And if I've created everything, since I've created everything, there is no lack. Because if there's lack, it is to suggest that there is not enough. And if I've created everything, then I've never, ever been able to not create enough. A double negative is a positive. Everything is connected. We can explain everything out. I come from the Christian church, and when I was a pastor, I don't know, I was varying levels of density. I was pretty dense. I was pretty asleep. And that's so common, and no disrespect to anybody's journey, because everybody's journey reflects my journey, right? So at that time, I was so dense, I was so asleep, I was so unconsciously living that I was outsourcing my power, and I was leading others to do the same. So by believing a God separate of myself, I was giving all of my intentionality away to a God that I didn't conceptualize. I had no concept of that God. There are people to varying levels of enlightenment that have a good concept of God, and for them, that's where they stop, and that's perfect, because there's varying levels of density. Density is not a lowers worse, higher's better type of thing. When we're talking about humans in the range of density, we are all animated by the same energy. Energy is energy. It's always is. It's everything in between. It's before, it's behind, it's inside, it's outside, it's all of it. So varying levels of density to be on this earth is more earthly. So if you think about scripture, and it talks about you are in the world, but you're not of the world. You're to be, what is it? A lamb among lions. I don't know if I made that part up, but you're meant to be different. You're meant to be set apart. And you can if you can conceptualize that, I think it's easy to overlay and see that, as far as what I know, in my 3D brain, as far as what I know, I think all religions are essentially saying the same thing, and I think that it's all connected. I could just talk forever and ever on this, but I find that at times when I'm starting to articulate this and it starts to get fuzzy, I'm like, well, how can I, wait a minute. Well, that's because the density, I'm falling lower on the vibrational scale and getting more and more dense. And I start to get confusion and all this. And here we go. We're bringing in inner law of attraction type things. And so once I start to fall on that density, I start to get more confusion and more doubt. And it's just low vibe stuff that we've heard about. But then once I realize, hold on, there's no need to doubt, because for me, my thought process, once I start to do that, I have reminders on my phone. I have so many things in the 3D to help toss me back to the 5D type of mentality, which scientifically could be explained through neurogenesis, right? And changing your habits, and find all the books, right? You can find this in all the books. And so to throw me back to the 5D, and so I have these moments, okay, I have to think of a question that I was kind of toying with. It was actually, because today is what it is, I saw on TikTok that at 2:22 you could da-da-da-da-da. It's so fun. It's so fun because I recognize that I am, then I can believe everything that's in this world is true. And I do, because that's what I believe. That's what I've chosen to conceptualize. So I did this thing where it's write down whatever. So I was like, okay, well, what do I want to happen in the next 2 hours? And so I wrote it down, and I just kind of, it's a moment of manifestation, visualization at that time. So 2 hours from that time was supposed to be 4:22 this afternoon. So I had something, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So that time, my phone's actually on Do Not Disturb, because again, I'm trying to teach my 3D to like just disengage and not be so pulled by some things. So it's kind of a fast. It's a fast for the physical, for the mental third dimension. And so my phone's on do not disturb, and then that time comes and I have no notifications or anything, but I'm like lost in my mind. I'm lost in the moment. I don't even know what I was doing. I think I was listening to music or whatever. I was doing all this stuff. The time came and went, and the thing that I created wasn't there. So I was like, well, if I am, then why didn't that show up? And I was like really trying to think through that answer, and I was like, wait a minute. The question is coming from the 3D's lack of conceptualizing this process. And just because the 3D mind can't understand it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Just because I don't understand something doesn't negate its existence. Because the fact that it is in my world and I'm aware of not understanding it means I understand it. Okay? And so on the higher up level is where the understanding is. And so I came to the understanding of course my 3D doesn't know the answer, because that's not for the third dimension to know. There are some things that don't connect, but once you enlighten a little bit, and once you come higher up on that translucent scale, that transparency scale, the higher vibration, you start to get into feelings and thoughts of what? Love, acceptance, and bliss, and understanding, and wisdom, and enlightenment, and centeredness, and I amness, understanding that I am all of it, that I have created all of it. So as I'm learning this stuff, I think, and I'm tracking on a thought and idea, and there's a fall off point, and I'm like, well, that's what level I was in, from 3D up to 5D. Whatever level I was in. 5D is just that holy, holy, holy space where everything makes sense and you see the weight of who you are, and you see that fullness. And then in that next moment, you see how light and free it is, because you are so taken care of. Everything around you is for your pleasure. It's a game, say, that you've created. And all you see is just how it's all good. You see what you want to see. You conceptualize. If you desire to see it, you're going to see it. Because anything less than fulfillment is a lack. And here we go down on that vibration scale. So if you look around and you see murder, and you see death and darkness and fear and just all of that, then that's an indication of where you are on that vibratory scale. If it doesn't feel good, it's low vibration. It's something that, if that's what you want, that's what you're creating. If you don't want that, that means take control of your power, understanding who you are, change your mind, read the book. It's in all of the mind books, all of the mindset shifting books. Change your mind, read the Bible, right? You will be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So change your mind to be what you want to see. Enter the room. Manifestation has just entered the chat. So you change your mind to what you want, and you have to see it. Well, sometimes the 3D is like, I can't see it. Well, no 3D you wouldn't, because it doesn't start there. You're too dense to be able to see it. But once it comes to a conceptualization in your mind, the 5D can see it. And you have to explain that to the 3D. How can the 5D see it and feel it and experience it without having it in the 3D? You already know that you have it in the 5th dimension. And that's how you can get your body in there. So for the 3D body, it feels like you're faking it. But any doubt of that fakingness keeps you even lower, because doubt is not joy and enlightenment and fulfillment, right? So you have to be there and experience there. And slowly, the more you do that, look at neuropathways and neurogenesis. Again, the more you do that, the more you've created the habit of seeing everything you want to see, and understanding that you have created everything that you see. And then you go back, who created it? Well, I did. Well, who are you? I'm you. I'm you. You're not me, I'm me. Keep pulling the lens back. And it's all cyclical. I'm going to jump off here. I think I could go on for 10 more hours. But the thought hit me earlier this afternoon that I am conceptualizing this more and more and more and more. but I'm not articulating it. I'm stumbling over the articulation aspect, which reminds me of why I had to start recording, knowing that I don't have an audience. Because if I have an audience, my 3D is going to want to perform. My ego is going to want to perform. I have to show my 3D. I have to train my 3D how to do what my 5D has been trying to integrate our entire life. I've had the vision of speaking since I was a child, and I've stumbled along the way, and I've tried to force it in my 3D. Hello, religion. Hello, Christianity. I've tried to force it. But once I recognized who I am, I'm driven by the I am. And so I'm speaking as I'm teaching the 3D to do what it has to do, what it has to learn how to do in order to do this without ego, without fear, but in full confidence to allow me to shine. Because why? Because I am confidence. Because I'm all of it. I am. But to varying levels, I have to train my body, my 3D. So here I am back to this. That's why I'm recording. What was it? I was onto something. I don't even know if I pressed it. And that's why I think I get so fumbly in my mind sometimes, because I'm creating all new neural pathways entirely through my head. This is my 3D, right? Like, I'm constantly creating new thoughts and ideas and pattern, and understanding the connectedness of life is just amazing. And so I just have these cauliflower thoughts that come and come and come and come. I think the more that I articulate it, back to that aspect anyway, the more I articulate it, the more I am snapping into or remaining in alignment with what the 5D, with what my soul I've known from the start. So, yeah, and she speaks, right? Like, I've been too much in my head about it and not allowing flow. And the reason why I haven't been able to articulate it, because I'm trying to articulate it from the 3D and not the 5D. The 5D is everything. It's mind, body, soul, spirit. If I'm only doing it from the body, then that's non-transcendental. Because that's only capping at that 3D level. But there are varying shades of brightness or translucency or evolution or enlightenment or awareness or wokeness, right? Varying levels, then there's so much more that can be said, because I'm being driven from this vision. But like a bow to a violin, I'm trying to calibrate how to live and how to know my audience and know, honestly, know to which density I'm speaking. And the only reason I can recognize those is because I am those. So there's no disrespect, because I don't disrespect me. I am respect. I'm worth. And so calibrating where on that bow to which vibration shall I speak, right? So it can be something, there is no start or end here. So it's not a 1 through 10. It's an infinity symbol, because it's a horizontal infinity symbol. There's no elevation in levels of density. I know I hear the irony in that, smart. But there's no elevation. And the reason I'm saying it that way is because the more dense we are, we start to categorize things and we start to pass judgment. And if we're passing judgment, then we are playing God. And that is not the idea. We're not playing God. When we understand that we are, that I am, remember, who's the thinker? When we understand that, we understand there is no judgment, and that we are all perception. We're all consciousness. So vibrating levels for the rosin on the violin. Okay, the bow. Oh yeah, the rosin. Everything's connected. I could constantly unpack. It's a never-ending flower. It's a blooming flower that just continually is in bloom. And it's all connected, because you just thought of Beauty and the Beast, right? It's the eternal blossoming. It's cyclical, just like the sun and the moon and the stars and all of it. All religions say the same thing. We're all pointing to the same thing. Okay, I swear I'm stopping now.